Amen.
Amen.
Hey, it's Adam with Backpack Theory Podcast. We unpack past experiences to help define a better future. Today, we are going to be unpacking strength training and the effects on mental and physical well-being. I have a guest here today that actually taught me a tremendous amount in my life, especially at 5 o'clock in the morning, whenever it came to brutal workouts at Lifetime Fitness here in Oklahoma City. My guest, Jason. Jason, what's your last name?
Frimpong.
Frimpong?
Yeah, Frimpong, like
How do you
ping-pong.
pronounce that?
Frim, like think frim, like a rim, but
Okay.
put the F in front, and then pong, like ping pong.
Like ping pong.
Yeah, so
Frimpong.
Frimpong.
What is your nickname?
Nickname.
Don't you have like a nickname or something?
Well, people I went to college they call me Pong.
Pong.
Yeah, Pong.
Okay.
But a lot of people now just call me Jay.
Well,
Short
because
for Jason.
you played football, so like people
Yeah.
just Pong
Good story
off of you.
behind that. My head coach at University of Central Oklahoma is the one that actually first started calling me Pong, and so his name is Nick Bobek. Shout out to you. He is the one that first called me Pong, and so once he started calling me Pong, the rest of my teammates started calling me Pong.
What?
And so once my teammates started calling me Pong, everybody in the whole school that knew me or knew football players saw them call me Pong, so that's why they call me Pong.
Oh, great.
So,
Well, there you go. You learn
yeah.
something new every day. If you're out there, you're a big fan of Jason, you watch him at UCO or Pitt, there you go. Speaking of which, let's go over. So Jason is from Dallas, Texas originally, played football at Pitt, University of Pittsburgh. After 2 years, transferred to University of Central Oklahoma, go Bronchos. He has a degree in mass communication from UCO, a bachelor's. He teaches full-time at Lifetime Fitness in Oklahoma City, which is how we connected. I think it's an understatement to say that Jason really loves Olympic weightlifting. When I say really, I mean really, 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 really loves Olympic weightlifting. And if you've ever been to one of his classes at 5 a.m., they will testify. And shout out to the 5 a.m. class. I know Amy, John David, I think, goes to your class now.
Yes, Danielle. There's a lot of shout out to those guys. It's a lot of people.
They show up at 5 a.m. every day and absolutely to get tortured by Jason. And he just sits there with like a straight face while the torture is going on. And he also teaches at Autism Learning Center, which is really cool. We'll get into that a little bit. And Jason has been a strength coach. How long have you been at Lifetime now?
4 years.
So he's been at Lifetime
Since
for
2018. 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And you got into Olympic weightlifting 6 years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So
I started Olympic weightlifting before I actually became a trainer.
did you really? And what is your max right now?
On which lift?
Well, why don't you just go through the lifts and tell the people a little bit about what Olympic weightlifting is and why you're so into it?
So Olympic weightlifting consists of two movements, which are the two strength movements that consist of snatch and clean and jerk. So, and that's what you compete in whenever you have a competition. You do the snatch and the clean and jerk. So the snatch it's a wide grip. You have a wide grip on a bar, and it's one movement above your head into an overhead squat position. So you pull the bar above your head and you go down into an overhead squat position. Clean and jerk is where you clean it onto your shoulders, catch it in a full squat in a front rack, stand up, then you do the jerk. Whichever jerk you prefer, split jerk, power jerk, squat jerk, whatever.
You're a jerk.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Olympic weightlifting consists of, the two movements, snatch and clean and jerk.
So why did you pick Olympic, or what drew you to Olympic weightlifting? I mean, I know, which we're going to unpack here in a second. I just know you're really passionate about this subject, so I figured I would just, unpack this a little bit. Like, why did you pick Olympic weightlifting over any other like fitness thing? Like, why did you make that your thing?
So growing up, whenever I was playing football, we did like cleans and stuff, and I was always good at like cleans, minus the jerk. We never really did jerks, but cleans is a very good exercise for developing power.
Okay.
So when it comes to a sport like football or any sport that has a power component, cleans are a very good exercise for that sport. So growing up, I played football, so we did cleans a lot. I had a really good strength and conditioning program out of high school, so we did that. So after, and I did that in college as well, cleans a lot in college. So after I graduated, when I found out like, yeah, football's probably over, I was working at Gold's Gym as just a front desk person, and all I would do is just scan people in. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. This is kind of boring. So one random day, it was a slow day, and I was on the computer, and at the front desk, and I was just looking on YouTube, and a random video of Cal Strength, which is a weightlifting program in California, they popped up on my timeline, and then it was showing all these guys doing cleans and snatches, and it was just a whole bunch of people just doing it. And I'm like, man, I've done that before. Like I didn't know it was a sport though. That's the thing, I didn't know it was a sport. I didn't even know it was like a thing you could get better at. So once I saw that, I was like, man, okay. We had one platform at Gold's Gym in Edmond off of Bryan and Danforth. And I was like, you know what, after I get off work, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go practice that because I've done cleans before. Never done snatches though, but I've done cleans. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go do it because I'm familiar with cleans. So one day, so that same day I got off work, got on a platform, and I started doing cleans. My district manager at the time saw me doing that and was like, man, you do you do this or do you want to get better at this? I was like, sure. I mean, I didn't really think anything of it. He was like, man, I got somebody I can link you in with. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, his name is Dr. Jason Miller, which is at the time he was a coach at Oklahoma City University, professor at Oklahoma City University, and he had a weightlifting program there. He was the head department of exercise science and kinesiology. So he gave me his contact, and I was like, okay, maybe I should give it a shot. I mean, I'm not doing anything else, right? So, I contacted him, and he contacted me back very, very close, or he contacted me back very soon. So once he contacted me back, we linked in. I went up there, and then I met him, and then I went over like my maxes, all that stuff. He was very nervous because I was a football player, so he thought I had a lot of injuries. So, but I'm fortunate that I didn't have any injuries. So I started with him, and I was under I was his athlete, and then the rest was history.
Dude, that's awesome. That's cool. So that's how you got into it. It's just literally happenstance. Yep. And I want to unpack that. Let's jump in a little bit to like unpacking that because, dude, as you know, I'm a part of a sports network now. I'm about to have a show on there. It's going to be called Beyond, where I interview athletes and, really talk about like that transition. Cause like, dude, especially like in Texas, right? Like, dude, high school football in Texas.
It's serious.
It's serious.
It's serious. I don't think people realize how serious it is.
No. And dude, so like, let's unpack a little bit, like where you grew up, like, how did you get into football? Like what was that? Like, well, how did you get into football, like growing up? Like, tell us a little bit about where you came from. Let's unpack your childhood a little bit.
So I was born in Dallas, Texas, in the outskirts of urban Texas, and growing up, I've always played different sports. My first sport was actually basketball. Like I wanted to play basketball. The coach that actually saw me playing basketball, he was my first football coach, and for Pop Warner. He came up to me and was like, hey, young man, do you want to play some football? I was like, sure. He gave me a few papers to sign, and he was like, take this home, have your parents sign it, and bring it back to me. I was like, okay. Went back home. My dad didn't want me to play because he thought I was too skinny. I was a very skinny kid growing up. So
if y'all ever like stand by this dude, I'm a decent sized human being. He literally dwarfs me. So him being skinny in my mind makes absolutely no sense. But continue.
Yeah, I was a skinny kid growing up. So
don't see it.
But yeah, I was, which is crazy. So my dad, he didn't think I should play football because I was skinny. My mom is the one that convinced him to let me play. So they ended up signing the papers, and I started playing Pop Warner football when I was like 8.
So it's safe to believe that your mom was the first one to believe.
Shout out to Elizabeth Frimpong.
So she was the original one to believe in you whenever it came to football.
Yep.
Was that like a conversation like you had to sit down and have? Like, why do you feel like your dad is apprehensive towards it?
My dad is and shout out to my dad too. My dad is very he's a very strict and black or white guy.
Okay.
So it's either this way or this way for him, you know?
Yeah.
They both come from Ghana, which is a country in West Africa. So they're very the ways that they think are very black and white, especially the men from there. So
are they first generation or second generation?
Yes. So I'm first generation.
Okay, so you're first generation.
I'm first generation.
Okay.
And they're originally from there.
So what kind of do you feel like? Because I know you're a very structured person. Let me unpack that a little bit. Do you feel like them coming to the United States, if they literally, immigrated here, like what kind of like, and you're talking about structure and everything, how did that affect you growing up when it came to like building discipline in your life? Do you feel like your dad was very disciplined? Your mom was very disciplined? Like, did that help you?
For sure. College was something that we had to do, me and my siblings.
Okay.
It wasn't no choice. We either found a serious trade or we had to go to college. Like that was not a thing. So my dad was very strict as far as like, we got to do these things this way. School is first, very important. Granted, I was fortunate that I could get my schooling paid for through sports. So, and my brother as well, he got some of his schooling paid through from sports too as well, which he played soccer. But yeah, growing up, like I didn't really eat that much fast food growing up until I got to like maybe like to a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was either my mom was cooking and that was it. Like I didn't really eat. It came down to that structure to where like we were careful about what we ate. So.
Well, I feel like that's a very important part when it comes to nutrition, which we're going to unpack here in a second. But I do want to touch on something in relation to like the immigration side of things. You know, I've talked to quite a few people who have immigrated. I have a lot of respect for them for a couple different reasons. Number one, if you're coming from somewhere like Ghana, like coming to the United States where, you know, like having so much and having like be able to go to fast food and having like all these priorities that we have, I feel like whenever people immigrate, they are just so grateful for the opportunity that like parents really instill that in their kids. Like, dude, like we came here to give you an opportunity. And do you feel that structure? Like, I mean, is that real?
I'm extremely grateful. Like without my dad's the one that came here first.
Okay.
And then he brought my mom and then he brought lots of his siblings, which is aunts and uncles. They're all in Dallas now.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm extremely grateful for it. My dad pretty much laid the foundation for everybody. So I'm like extremely grateful. Like, and I even went back to Ghana when I think I was like 6, and I spent some time there just so that my family really wanted me to ingrain in the culture, get the culture ingrained in me, so that whenever I came back, I always had that foundation. You know what I mean? Because it's very structured. So
what do you feel like the difference is from an American structure, someone who's moving to somewhere like Dallas, Texas, which is very materialistic, very fast paced? What is the difference like from a culture in Ghana? Like what do you feel like would have been different you growing up there than here?
Everything there, you become grateful.
Okay.
You become real grateful for everything that you get here.
Okay.
You see, and then family structure there too as well. That family structure there is very important. Everybody sits at the table to eat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Here, you don't get that as much. There's a lot of broken families here.
Absolutely.
That's not even a thing. Like whenever somebody grows old or become an elder, there's no group home. Everybody gets taken care of. My dad recently just went back to Ghana for good because he's getting up in age, and that's what he wanted to do.
Wow.
So there's no group home that you take the elders to.
Right.
Like they either go back to Ghana or siblings or their offspring come and they take care of them. There's no group home. It's very family structured, very, very family structured, and like especially within the nuclear family. Extended family, of course, but within the nuclear family, everybody stays pretty close knit.
And I think going into dude, thank you for sharing that with me. And I think the reason I wanted to touch on that a little bit is because you're going into sports, you know, sports, being around sports, there are so many pressures whenever it comes to being a high performing athlete that a lot of people have no idea the off the field stuff that you're dealing with. And so like, why don't you share with us a little bit about when your it moment came along to where you really realized and like coaches really realized, dude, this guy's special? Because I think there's a very small percentage of high school athletes that go to a Division I school like Pitt or even go to UCO for goodness sake. So why don't you unpack a little bit? Like, when did you realize there was really something special there? And how maybe you having a grounded family allowed you to get to that next level?
When I found out it was really serious is whenever I started getting letters in the mail as a junior.
Okay.
As a junior. Whenever I started getting letters in the mail, that's when I was like, okay, this is serious. Like colleges were sending letters. I didn't have any offers at the moment, but I was getting letters. And I think my dad would always tell me like the offers are going to come. They're going to come. And a lot of what a lot of colleges do when they're recruiting is they won't wait. They'll wait for somebody else to offer a kid first, and then then that's when all the stuff rolls in, all the offers roll in. So that's what happened to me. So I didn't get offered until like close to like the end of my junior year of high school, where there's other kids that get offered very early. So I had a lot of interest from Kansas State. That was the first school that like showed like a lot of interest in me.
Thank God you didn't go there.
But yeah, they were the first school to offer me, or not offer me, but show interest. They never offered me. They offered a lot of my teammates, but they didn't offer me. So the first offer I got was Tulsa, University of Tulsa, and that's when all of them started rolling. So it's like they waited for one school to offer, then that's when all the other schools. But to talk about the structure, my dad always was always telling me, if you don't make good grades, you can't play. And good grades were never a problem for me. So making good grades was always something I always wanted to do because it makes it easier for whenever you take like an ACT. I'm not a big test taker, so whenever, same.
Dude, it's terrible at.
Same here. So whenever my GPA was good, so I didn't have to score extremely high to get accepted into these schools because I had a good GPA. Right. And that's how it works whenever the sliding scale, that's how it works whenever you're in school. So that's basically, and then my dad was always telling me, we were always taking trips. We went to all these colleges. We went to the University of Tulsa. We went to the University of Kansas State. We went to Kansas. We went to Oklahoma State. We had schools come up to my high school. It was a whole ordeal. So I think having a very structured dad really helped me, and my mom too. But it's different whenever you have a really structured dad. Like when you have a really structured dad, then a lot of stuff goes well. So.
And that's really hard. And like, did you hear all these stories about all these college athletes, kids that come out of school, and like, they had like a really strong mother, or like there's a lot of single parents out there. There's a lot of single kids, and the big thing like on having that. My parents have been married for a really long time. I'm very blessed to have had that example. But the pressures whenever it comes to being a high performing athlete off the field, did you deal with a lot of those pressures? Because I mean, you've got women, you've got ego, you've got drugs, you've got alcohol. Basically, I mean, we do, because high school sports or high school football in Texas is bigger than college football in some states.
That's true.
So like, do you feel like, I mean, did you fall into some of that stuff? I mean, going through high school and everything, or do you really feel like your family surrounded you and kept you out of those pitfalls?
So my family did keep me surrounded, and they did help a lot with the pitfalls, but my dad always told me, like, I can't be there for you all the time. So whenever these situations arise, you need to learn how to be a man and learn how to deal with these situations. So for instance, going into my sophomore year, I made the varsity squad my sophomore year. I was a backup quarterback, and I was only a sophomore. So that's big, right? You come from being on a freshman team straight to varsity. Like, you skip junior varsity,
right?
You're not even on junior varsity, right? As opposed to like a lot of your teammates and classmates that you played freshman with go to junior varsity before they go to varsity. I don't think people realize that. So I like skipped over that. So, and then in Texas, that's a big thing. So I was a sophomore. Nobody really knew me at that time, it was funny. But my junior year, that's when I became the starting quarterback. So we played the number 3 team in Texas, which was Plano at the time. Yeah, Plano. And the first play of the game, which was the first play of the season, I broke an 80-yard touchdown run. And we ended up beating Plano, I believe it was 14-10. And they were the number 3 team in Texas. We weren't ranked.
Wow. So
that was on a Friday. Going to school that next Monday, you go from not really being known to like everybody knowing you. So that was the biggest thing. And that feeds your ego. That validates your ego big time. So like, my dad taught me how, and my mom taught me how to stay grounded with all of that. And that's when the colleges start to roll in and stuff like that, because Texas is a feeding ground for recruiters.
Absolutely it is.
So yeah, my family, obviously there were some things I had to learn on my own that my dad or mom couldn't be there physically to teach me, but me having that structured family group, it really helped me on times where they weren't with me. So.
And I love the fact that like your dad really was honest and transparent with you whenever it came to the fact that like, I'm not going to be there for you all the time. You're going to have to learn some of these lessons on your own. And like my dad, I tell this story all the time, dude. This was right after high school. I freaking got in the wrong group, started selling pot. It was more of like a hobby thing. I ended up selling to the wrong person, ended up going to jail. And I'll never forget like calling my dad, and I was like in tears, Dad, I'm in jail. They're going to put me in a cell. Like, and my dad's like, well, you put yourself there. Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. And he left me in there for 10 days. That's true love, dude. That's true love.
That's good stuff, man.
That's true love. I've never been back to jail ever again. Never stole pot. Never got back into that arena. But that's because he allowed me to learn the lesson. I feel like so many of us, like, we're looking for someone to rescue us. We're looking at being victims. We're looking for reasons to get out. And like, the more that our parents, the more that our support group, the people around us can like enable us and strengthen us to like allow us to make mistakes and not just rescue us, but like be hard and be transparent on you. Like, dude, that builds true strength as you're like growing up and whenever you're going through all those pressures.
Yeah, most definitely. I actually have a story. That's funny that you brought that up. I have a story. Whenever I was a freshman in college, when I was at the University of Pittsburgh, I was far away. One.
Yeah.
Two, there was a time, I think it was 2012, where NCAA stopped doing two-a-days practices during the summer because that was a thing leading up to 2012.
Okay.
So just because for the safety of kids, you know, people were having heat strokes, and so they stopped doing that after 2012. But I remember exactly because I'm in contact with my dad a lot. So I remember I wasn't in contact with him during that process because I was just so like beat with everything that was going on.
Yeah.
So my dad called me. He was like, "Man, I haven't heard from you in like 2 weeks. You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, you know, I'm good. I'm just going through 2 days. I don't know. Like, I was really feeling like I couldn't do it no more." And I was telling him, I was like, "You know, Dad, I don't know. Like, I love football, but I don't know how much I can do this." And his exact words was, "Well, you're not coming home, so you got to finish it. You started, you got to finish it." And that kind of that stuck with me. You know what I mean? So
Dude,
that's tough love, man.
that's real though, dude. That's what I feel like in this country right now. Like, dude, even like I look at like your style whenever it comes to why I got the most benefit out of Jason's trainings in the morning was the fact that like, dude, he would push you to your limit. Like, he would say, "Well, you set your weights, you decide what you want to do. Like, you take ownership over it. But once you set those weights, that's what you're lifting." And like, you know, and it makes you think about it. It makes you take ownership over it. And I feel like so many people in today's society are looking for ways to escape, looking for excuses to get out of things and not hold themselves accountable because nobody else is holding them accountable.
Sure.
And so we become like this massive victim society to where it's everybody else's fault for why we're not getting in shape, why mentally we're a train wreck, why we're going through all the, like, do you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, you stay the same.
You stay the same.
There's no, I always tell people whenever you go through something and you have a part to play in it that you did wrong, it might be the other person's fault, but you also had to play. You had a part to play in it too. And whatever the other person did, that sucks. Yeah, but at the same time, if you see it as like, oh, they did this to me and I'm a victim, then you'll never get better yourself. So take whatever you did wrong in that process and learn and then get better. That's the only way, and accept it and get better. Like, that's the only way that you're gonna do it. Like, that's yeah, I'm really big on that. Like, self-improvement is I'm really big on that. So, dude,
taking ownership, you know, like, it takes true strength. And like, I want to get, so let's real quick, I want to unpack one thing. I know that during that, it had to have been during that transition when 18, you lost your mom.
Yeah.
How did that affect you going, was that your senior year? Like, when did that happen?
So I lost my mom whenever I was 18. I just graduated. And it was 3 months after I graduated. So right after graduation, about 2 weeks after graduation, I went to Pittsburgh, and I was there for the majority of the summer. I was there doing summer classes and doing summer workouts with the team and being there with the coaches and stuff and getting like accumulated to just being there. That's far away from home, man. I've never been that far. Well, besides Ghana, but I was with family, but I was by myself.
Right.
And I'm not a person to get like homesick or anything like that. So, yeah, I lost my mom I had came back home at the end of August, and I had found out that my mom got into a car wreck.
Oh my God.
And she was fine. She broke her ankle, and she had like minor bruises and stuff like that, but she couldn't walk for some time because she had a broken ankle. So I was home for about a week before going back to Pittsburgh. And, you know, the time that I was home, I would visit her every day in the hospital. Like, me and my mom, we were close, just like the rest of my siblings were. But so I'd visit her daily in the hospital. The day that I had to go back to Pittsburgh was the day that she passed away. She had a heart attack, or she died of cardiac arrest.
Wow.
So I was 18, and I actually had the decision of staying or leaving because I had a flight that same morning. My oldest brother was the one that found out, and then he called my dad, and then my dad told me. So I was just waking up in the morning when my dad telling me that. So 18 years old.
Dude, that's insane. What in those moments, like, is there anything? Hey, dude, I'm sorry. Like, my mom's got bone marrow cancer right now. We really
Sorry to
don't.
hear that, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I know God's in control, and I know
Sure.
you're a big faith based guy too. So, like, we get precious time with people,
Sure.
and but I know that, like, especially like that connection between like a mom and like a son,
Mhm.
like it's such a special connection. Was there anything ever like that? Is there anything your mom ever told you, or any lesson, or like something about your mom that maybe like stuck out to you that like really just encouraged you through all this, or like going through college, going through life right now that just really still sticks with you?
You know, my mom was very loving, caring, sweetest. I always say she's the sweetest lady. She, there's only so much she could have done to teach a man,
Yeah.
because a man has to be raised with his father too.
Yeah.
So she taught me the side of sensitivity. You know what I mean? Not being so numb, not being so rough. Have grace for yourself, have grace for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was a very strong believer as well. So my mom we always went to church. She was very, very strong. So she taught me, the biggest thing I would say that she taught me was have grace for yourself and always also have grace for people.
Yeah, extend that same grace, man, because it's so society, like, especially like today, like in our world, like it's so easy to like be this black and white and like
Sure.
really like not just be curious, not ask questions, not like even try to understand where the other person's coming from.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, but also like for athletes, like having the grace for yourself, like you're not always going to perform perfectly. You're not always going to step up to that standard. Like it's not always going to go the way you thought. So like allowing yourself a little bit of grace and allowing yourself to like understand that it's okay
Mhm.
not to always be perfect is like a really big thing, especially for a man.
And I'll be transparent. That's the biggest thing that I struggle with because I have so much of my dad's traits, and my dad is like that. So every time I feel myself in that realm, I always have to tell myself, like, your mom would tell you to have some grace on yourself. You know what I mean? So yes, speaking on that to bring things to full circle, that's a big thing. So I think the mixture of both of them was really good for me.
Dude,
So,
that's so cool.
yeah.
So let's speed forward a little bit. So you go to Pitt. What was the determining factor for you to transfer from Pitt to UCO?
So after my mom passed away, it was very hard for me to stay there because I wanted to be around family more. And we had got new coaches at the time at Pittsburgh. So the old coaches that recruited me had left.
Okay.
Then we got new coaches, which new coaches were cool. They came from Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin. But I've seen that they were trying to bring their recruits in and get the old recruits out.
Gotcha.
It's a whole politic thing when it comes to college sports. So I've seen that happen. So I didn't want to, and the way that it was done too, it was very harsh.
Okay.
So I wanted to save myself,
Mhm.
and I took it upon myself to transfer. So I told my dad that, and me and my dad literally were on like a hunt on where we can go next. And I just told my dad, like, look, I don't even care if I go to a Division II school. I just want a school that wants me. So at the time, UCL reached out and they really wanted me. So that's where I went. And it was closer to Dallas, which is about like 2.5 hours. If I'm driving, it's about 2.5 hours. Don't tell nobody that, but
No comment. No comment. Yeah, dude, same here. But so if you so you transferred to UCO, do you feel like what gave you peace about UCO? Like, did you feel like that's where God was moving you? Like what? Like, I mean, because you're taking a step from Division I to Division II. At that point, did you know that you probably weren't gonna play like pro football, or like was that like a reality you were hitting? Like, I know that there's that transition whenever you're in college sports to where like you start recognizing like there's got to be some kind of exit strategy. Was that part of this move as well?
at that time I was young, so I didn't really think about it. It was
Okay.
more so like, dang man, I don't get the luxury like I do at Division I schools.
Right.
When you're at a Division I school, you get everything, and more. So like whenever I went to UCO, which is Division II school, you don't get exactly everything paid for.
Right.
So I got majority of stuff paid for, but you don't get everything paid for, and it's not as luxurious as the Division I school. So when it became to like to bring back things to full circle, I didn't really think about that stuff. I just wanted to play football. You know what I mean? I just wanted to play football. Yeah, it wasn't as luxurious, but I built a lot of friendships there that I'm very grateful for, that I still have to this day. So, and I think that's the biggest thing that I can take from that. So it wasn't an exit strategy because I still thought I could go to the next level from there. So, but it was more so like I just wanted to continue to play football.
So speaking to that, at what point did you realize that football, because there's a lot of, I mean, and speak to this, and I don't mind if you speak to maybe guys that are thinking about going into college sports or in college sports, because like at what point and where was that transition where you started realizing, because like every kid growing up, you're playing sports. I mean, me in my wonderful, glorious imagination thought I was going to go to the NBA and all of my
I remember you telling me you
glory.
like basketball.
That's what I thought. I mean, clearly I can jump out of the gym. I played basketball with Blake Griffin.
Adam can really jump, by the way. When you look at him, you don't think he can, but he can jump. I've seen him jump before, so
flattered.
He can jump.
Flattered. Not as high as what I would like everybody to think I can, but yes, I can fly. But, growing up, like, that was my thoughts. I mean, you probably in your mind were like, dude, like, I'm going to go play in the NFL. Like, this is what my purpose is. Getting towards that area, like, towards the end of college, like, how did that transition go? Was it tough mentally? Was it tough physically? Like, was it tough emotionally, spiritually? Like, did that really challenge you? Like, finding that identity?
Yeah. Because, you grow up throughout high school, like you're a superstar.
Yeah.
You're a superstar. You get to, so like everybody puts this identity on you, especially like family, friends. My mom was always like flattered that people would come up to her and tell her your son was in the newspaper. You know what I mean? And when you have African parents, they really don't know too much about American sports.
Right.
My dad picked on it pretty fast, but my mom was just like, she was just very supportive, but she didn't really know what was going on. So like whenever college coaches would come to our house and talk to us, like she was very like flattered, and she would always like, it was a learning thing for her because she never knew about this. So, when growing up, it's hard because people put an identity on you, and if you don't fulfill that identity, it's like, damn, you know what I mean? Like he went to college, now he's not even at a Division I no more. He went to Division II, and then okay, he's there. But then after that, I thought he was going to go to the NFL. All these high hopes that you had whenever you were in high school, they didn't fulfill. You know what I mean? So that was physically, it didn't impact me too much because I always thought I was physically capable, but mentally knowing that it was embarrassing at first because, you got to go home because your dad's still in Dallas, Texas. Your brothers and sisters are still there too. Your aunts and uncles there, and your family, your friends are still there. So it's like going back there, you kind of gotta sit in embarrassment. I don't want to call it embarrassment, but you kind of have to face that. So I think I handled that well, just because what my parents taught me. But but yeah, it's tough because people put an identity on you,
dude. People casting identity on others and like you embracing, like that's one of my big beliefs in the backpack theory is the fact that like growing up, like we get these identities that aren't even our identity and they take it and they place it in our backpack and that like forms like our value, right? Like what we believe about ourselves. Like you and I are believers. So like your identity truly should be in God and the way that he created you.
Right.
But it's so hard like growing up and like being surrounded by people where they take this identity and they cast it on you. And whenever you get to a point in life where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like that was my entire identity. Like, what do I do moving forward? I think so many college athletes, you look at them and they transition on the outside. Like Sam Mays has become like one of my really good friends. And like, dude, like the stories that he tells about like the transition of athletes, like post college, especially if you don't have that really strong family figure, it's basically, it's like, well, thanks for your service. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And and that's the crazy thing. A lot of people don't realize like how many people get just washed out of the system. You go to college and they'll try to give you, the coaches there will try to give you say you have a hard degree, they'll try to give you a general studies degree so you can get through faster.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So they can kind of just get you in, get you out, get the more people in. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. So it's very eye opener once you see that, you know what I mean? Because going into it as a freshman, you have no idea because you're so happy about.
You're just hyped. You want to play football.
Exactly. They don't really teach you how to manage yourself when things don't go your way, as far as like trying to go to the NFL and stuff like that. They don't really prepare you for that. So That's the biggest thing. It's a vicious cycle. It
I
is.
mean, do you have like teammates and stuff? You don't have to bring up names, but do you have teammates and stuff that like got out of college, didn't have that same support system? Maybe they came from a broken family, or maybe like they had drank a bunch of booze, or maybe like they had gone through like this transition, like they reached the end of it and they don't have a support team anymore, and then they're just cut loose. Have you seen like that?
Of course.
Like those kids, like
Of course. It doesn't go well at all.
Mhm.
They go back to their hometown. They get into wherever that they were getting into. Yeah, it doesn't go well. Doesn't go well. Not everybody, but that happens a lot. Happens a lot.
And it's so sad that there's not like a support system, because like,
Yep.
you know, that's the big thing in college sports and in sports in general. Like, you know, like you get a lot of like physical strength training, but like and you get mental strength training in relation to on the field performance,
Sure.
but there's not a lot of training whenever it comes to the transition
Yeah.
post school.
Because nobody really cares. Coaches really don't care because they just want to get the new people in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't really care. I mean, they care to an extent, but it's not as much as getting the new crop of athletes in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, they don't really think about that. And a lot of guys just, like I said, go back home to their hometown and just kind of do whatever, you know?
So you get out of, you go back to Texas, you're basically in this somewhat identity crisis.
I actually stayed here.
Okay. So you stayed here.
So once I graduated from Oklahoma, or from Central Oklahoma, I stayed here. I was
Okay.
back and forth, but I lived here. So it was hard. It was hard.
So that transition period, how long did it take from that to Gold's Gym? Because you had a degree, you
Sure.
graduated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have this degree in, what was it in again?
Mass communication.
Mass communications. So like, did they not like say, hey, listen, like, here's a position that you could go fill. Here's job fairs. Like, what happened?
So I'll be honest. I wanted to be a sports analyst. So in order to do that, I had to go get my master's in journalism.
Okay.
Didn't really want to go back to school. So I just never fulfilled that purpose. I always knew I liked exercise to a certain point, but I didn't really know too much. Yeah, you think you know because you played college sports and you work out for your college sport.
Right.
So you think you know exercise, but you really don't. You really don't. So I started working at Gold's Gym as a front desk associate.
And that was how soon after transitioning?
I want to say that was probably about 4 to 5 months after.
Did they like give you bridge money? Did they like point you in the direction of an apartment? Like, I mean, this
I
is
was
not
staying, no, they didn't. They did not.
So you transit. So what did you do?
So
Like,
I was
that's what I'm
living with
asking.
I was living with friends.
Okay.
Living with friends on the couch.
So you lived on friends with a couch. You went from being at a Division I school to being at a Division school to Division II school, playing a lot of sports to you were on a couch. How
That's
did you
what
like bootstraps mentally, physically? Like, were you looking? I mean, did you have a strong relationship with God at this time?
It was always foundational.
But
I was-
was there a relationship there?
No.
So in that moment, did you just feel lost?
Yeah, I did.
So how did you get out of it? Like, how did you even get to Gold's Gym? Like, what happened? Like, was there a certain group of people around you? Like,
I believe at the time I needed some money.
okay,
And like we all need money. Like
right? Yeah, I mean,
that's
part
just
of the
yeah.
society.
It is.
Yeah.
You need some money. So, and I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car at the time, and I was tired of asking people for rides. I didn't want to ask people for rides. That gets very
Yeah,
annoying.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I was like, man, I can't keep living like this. Like, so I was like, I got to get a job. And then my dad, he would tell me like, and it's funny because I always used to ask my dad for money, and especially through college.
Oh yeah.
And so he got tired of doing that. He would still give me money, but I had to go work. I had to physically go work, and he told me that. And
Good.
so that was I started working at Gold's Gym immediately, and I didn't even have a car, so I walked from my friend's house to Gold's Gym
Wow.
and back when I got off work. Walked there in the morning. I would work a 6 a.m. to about 3 p.m. shift.
So you started grinding.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. And then I have so the relationships that got built was there was trainers there at Gold's Gym at the time. Shout out to my guy Cody. Him and a few other trainers that I was like, man, I like those guys. I want to become a trainer like those guys. And so they had a program there where you could they would take some money from your check
Okay.
to pay for a national certification for personal training. So that's what I signed up for it. I signed up for that, and I was like, so every time I got paid, they would take bits and pieces from that check to pay for my certification. And so that's what I did to be able to become a personal trainer.
So you ended up, instead of, because a lot of people in your situation in that time of life, you got two options. When you pull the bootstraps up and you start from nothing. I've been there, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, I've been there. I've literally had nothing to my name.
And I think that's good for young men. They need to do that.
Yeah.
They need to go through that.
You got to understand that like it is literally you and it is you. Like you, it's God and nothing else.
That's it.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
And like you're cut off, like this is your position. But I love the fact that you literally were basically to the point where you were like, I'm not going to become a victim. I'm not going to ask for any more money. I'm going to walk to work. I'm going to walk to work and I'm going to go get it. Yeah. After all these years of basically being served on, like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to pull my bootstraps up and I'm going to start getting it. And then you went to the gym and you saw the group of guys that you wanted to be like, and you said, I'm going to start associating with those people. And you put yourself in that position. You put yourself out there. So going through that, like, so you're growing, you start developing, like, you got to be getting smarter in relation to the body, the mind, all of that. Like, what was that transition period? Like, how did you end up at Lifetime, or how did you end up in Olympic weightlifting? I don't know what like the correlation is there.
So I just wanted to be a trainer.
Right.
So I didn't really know. I knew like I wanted to be a trainer. I saw the other guys train there. So I wanted to become a trainer.
Right.
But I didn't know what I was good at. You know, every trainer, you need a method.
You need a thing.
Yes. Yeah. That separates you from the rest of the trainers.
Absolutely.
So I didn't really have that at that time. So I was like, man, I got to find something. And so like I was going back to telling you how I started seeing these YouTube videos, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to go on the platform and go try this. So as I was doing that, and as I got with Dr. Miller, he, being his athlete, he threw me in the fire, and I started doing competitions. And so once I started doing competitions and I started to get really good at it, and I was becoming a trainer at this time, I was like, man, I can really make this my niche,
right? To
where it separates me from the rest of the coaches. You know what I mean? Not that many people teach Olympic weightlifting, not that many. So I'm like, man, I can really. Me and my guy Vic, shout out to Vic too. Me and him were under Dr. Miller, and we pretty much was like his mentees, and he pretty much taught us like how to coach, how to program for Olympic weightlifting, stuff like that. And we just kind of just went through the process of being under him, which kind of made us better for ourselves. So big shout out to Dr. Miller. If you're watching this, shout out to him.
And so OKC Barbell, how did that get started?
So Dr. Miller is the one that started that.
And how long ago was that?
That was about 10 to 11 years ago, man.
Because that was before you even knew him.
Yeah.
Okay, so he started that. Is that where you went after Golds? Or you just got plugged into OKC Barbell?
So I went to both. So after I went to Lifetime, and so I was training clients at Golds. So, all right. So from Golds, I transferred to another Golds on Memorial.
Okay.
And I was a trainer there.
Okay.
And then they were like, big word came in Oklahoma City. Oh, we're building a Lifetime, like 2 minutes away from here. And I was like, dang, okay. And so the personal training manager at the time started recruiting me from Golds to Lifetime. And so I was like, man, I think I'm gonna make that jump.
Right. So
I made that jump. Throughout this whole process of me making that jump and training people at Golds, I was at OKC Barbell training.
Okay.
And I was an athlete under Dr. Miller.
That's awesome. And you still do that? I mean, you also go compete everywhere?
I actually did a competition about 2 months ago.
How'd it go?
It went well. Hit some big numbers.
What numbers?
So I hit, everything's in kilograms, so I got to convert so that it makes it easier for the audience. But snatch 120 kilos, which is roughly like 276 or 267. And then clean and jerk was about 165, which is roughly 165 kilos, which is roughly like 366 or something like that. So I've done more than that, but that's what I did at the competition.
What's your max?
My max clean only without the jerk is 171 kilos, which is about 377.
And how is that like from a national average whenever you look at like people you're competing
I got
against?
some work to do.
You got some work to do.
I got some work to
teach
do.
yourself aware enough. I love the fact that you're
got
just
some
own
work
it.
to do.
I love that you'll own it.
I got some work to
And
do.
I love the fact you're owning it and you're just like, dude, I still got more work to do.
I got work to do. So just because whenever you do Olympic weightlifting, it's so many components in it. You got to get stronger. You got to get faster. You got to improve your technical, your technique. You got to improve even your mental. You got to improve your mental to where you know you're going to get underneath some weight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just so much to improve on when it comes to that stuff.
How do you feel like diet wise plays into all this? Like I know you listened to that podcast that I had with Kelsey Kaler the other day.
That was a good one.
Brilliant chick. Unbelievable whenever it comes to like her nutrition program and everything. If y'all have not watched that episode, it's right before this one. Go check it out. Like how does diet play into all this? And like we're going to get into like the mental stuff a little bit more, but like how does diet play into all this as well?
You know, mass moves mass, right? So you have to build strength on your body, which comes from what you eat. Well, if you eat well, but you have to eat. You have to eat.
Right.
Like whenever you strength train, it's like putting fuel in your car, right? Gas in your car. You have to put the gas in your car so it works. Same thing with your body. You can't function well if you don't eat well. You have to, especially if you're in a weight, because in Olympic weightlifting, there's weight classes. So if you don't make your weight class, then you don't compete, especially at national levels. So to make your weight class, you have to, there's a component of, okay, I need to eat right, make sure I'm not overweight, but I need to eat enough so I have enough energy, all that type of stuff. So,
dude, it's really cool.
Yeah.
What is your average diet? How many calories do you eat a day?
Ooh, man, I don't even track that, but I eat a lot. I eat about 4 meals a day.
4 meals a day?
4
like full meals?
I eat in the morning. I eat about mid-morning, lunch. I eat and then after I get off work, I eat, and then dinner.
Do you know John David?
John David
Willimon?
No, I don't.
Okay. I don't know if he comes to your exact class. I know that he goes to Alpha some mornings.
John David. He sounds familiar, man.
Super structured. Very, very, very ridiculously structured. He comes to the 5 a.m. class. He comes to my Tuesday night men's Bible study at my house.
Okay. Sounds familiar.
I want to do sometime. You two get along, but his diet is super, super, super structured, and he like the way that he breaks it down. Anyway, so you are doing OKC Barbell. You are doing Lifetime. Mm-hmm. I know that. And where did the autistic learning thing? Where did that come from? And like, why did you get involved in that?
That kind of came randomly. I wanted to learn more about the psychological behind being at a deficit when it comes to autistic people.
Okay. Why? Like, did you meet someone that was autistic? Like, what
I actually had a friend that left Lifetime to work there.
Okay.
And she told me how it was. And so I kind of got interested by what she was telling me. So that's when I decided to apply for there. And then that's when I started working there.
Okay.
So it was more so of, I was curious because I don't even have I didn't go to school for that.
And so what have you learned since you've been there, or like, why do you keep on doing it? Because I would assume like there's probably better ways to make money, if you will, but like what is the reasoning to, talk a little bit to the camera about like, what's the reasoning behind that? And like, what have you learned about like autistic kids?
The spectrum is big, so wide, and it's pretty much like, you got your high functioning kids, you got your low functioning kids, and you got your kids that's in the middle. And those kids, and there's nothing really wrong with those kids. They just have a different way of learning. As far as like social skills, how to just maneuver throughout the world, because they live in a different world. They almost live in a world where it's like, it's my world. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And which causes different behaviors, you know what I mean? Stuff that can be triggering to them. So I don't want to say they're at a deficit, but they kind of are. So I've always, and I don't know if you know, but most autistic people are men.
Really?
Most autistic people are men.
Didn't know that.
There's a small percentage that's women, but most autistic people are men. So that's why I've always wanted to learn that, because learning, growing up, I feel like men have to create their value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't just get born with value. You have to create your resources. You know what I mean? You have to do all these things to become a well-rounded, solid man. So whenever you're a young boy, but you don't have any disabilities, you start with nothing. You start with zero. But whenever you're an autistic boy, then you start from like the negative.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're already going up. You're already, you're starting going on an uphill battle, but you're starting even lower on the hill, if you will.
Exactly.
Typically, just from a societal perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the part that I wanted to always learn about.
Now, in relation to that, I don't know if, are there any studies or anything in relation to exercise and fitness and everything when it comes to people that that are autistic?
I haven't really looked into it. I've looked into it, but I haven't found any.
Okay.
But I know that regardless, strength training or exercise in general is good for everybody. So if you're physically capable and you don't have any limitations, then everybody needs to be exercising, and especially strength training, because I think the fitness industry really does a good job of trying to dim the light on strength training.
Why do you think they do that?
I don't want to get too
it's not conspiracy theory. Just your opinion. Like, okay, well, why do you then explain to us, like, why is strength training, like, why do you feel so passionately about it? Like, what is it about the movements in strength training that, like, what is it about those movements?
Well, as you get up out of bed, you need strength, right? No, people don't even realize you need strength as you get out of bed.
Right.
You need strength to open a door. You need strength to do anything, to move.
Right.
So that's why strength training is so important. When they tell people, don't lift weights, don't do this, that's detrimental. You know what I mean? Why would you tell somebody to not move their body, not go push some heavy weights, or not even heavy, just push some weights? You know what I mean? Like, you have to, as a human, do resistance training. Right. Because everything you do in life is resistant. Literally.
Mentally, physically, all of it.
Yeah. Everything is going against the grain. Whew. You know what I mean? Everything you do is going against the grain. So you have to do those things. And if you don't build a foundation, it's never too late, but it's always best to build a foundation now. You know what I mean? There's a doctor that I watch her podcast. Her name is Gabrielle Lyons.
Okay.
She's very, very, very knowledgeable. And she always says that, America's not over fat. We're just under muscled. And her TED Talk actually got flagged because I guess there's a weird cognition or a weird stigma behind lifting weights, which I don't understand. But her TED Talk actually got flagged because she was talking about how people need to lift weights. I don't know if it ties to being douchey, or I don't know what lifting weights does, but it actually got flagged for that, which I find that crazy. And, if you go tell people, like, if you go ask the average person, I want to, what is your fitness goals? Not many say get stronger or build muscle. Not that many people say that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They want to lose weight. I just want to feel good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing about the feel good and which I want to touch, because I've experienced this personally. The thing about the feel good in the thing about the feel good thing, like, I just want to feel good. I just want to do this. There's so many different ways out there to get quick results. There's so many different ways out there to feel good real fast. There's a lot of medications. There's a lot of things that you can do. Long-term slow strength training, whether it be mentally, which is stuff like reading books, whether it be listening to podcasts that not everybody's listening to, whether it be being okay being in an environment where you do not drink and everybody else is drinking, like, whether it be lifting weights and, like, you're slowly progressing and adding things on, like, anything great in life requires discipline, requires consistency, and requires time. It takes investment. It takes goals. And I feel like in society today, especially, like, everybody's like, well, just enter the cheat code, right? It goes back to, like, playing video games. Why would you play the entire video game whenever you can just enter the cheat code, right? Like, why go through all the pain? And the problem with the cheat code is that it's a temporary solution that actually hinders you from long-term consistent results. And I think that we buy into that because mentally it's easier. It's easier to get the shot in the arm and move on down the road. And so I think strength training really requires consistency. There's no promise of, hey, this is going to fix your problem. It's, hey, listen, you're going to start here and then slowly you're going to become better. And I think that that truly affects everything mentally, spiritually, physically, and your entire life. It takes grit. It takes dedication. Not everybody wants to get up at 5 a.m. and go push their body. Not everybody wants to do it before they go to bed. Not everybody wants to get 9 hours of sleep a night because it's easier to sit up and binge watch a Netflix show. But then you wake up the next day and you feel terrible, and it is really easy to blame a bunch of other factors. Well, I'm just stressed out of my job, or I drank last night because everybody else was drinking. You know, like it's just really easy to fall into the social norm. And that's one of the things I have a lot of respect for you about, and why I wanted you to come to the podcast, is because all the conversations that we've ever had, even at 5 o'clock in the morning, amazingly enough, were always deep conversations about choosing to do hard things.
They were. You know, strength training, when it comes to a health standpoint, it's probably the most, there's studies that show this, it's the most anti-cancerous training you could do that'll help. Yeah, look it up. Dr. Gabrielle Lyons would even tell you that. I'm telling you, because muscle protects you. Muscle will protect you. So strength training is something that should be mandatory for everybody. It really should. There's when you build skeletal muscle mass on your body, it's literally a protector from sickness. You know what I mean? It's protector from osteoporosis, which is highly, women get it earlier than men because of due to lower levels of testosterone. You know what I mean? So it's really important for men to lift weights, but it's really important for women to lift weights. So that's why I always encourage women. Like my team at OKC Barbell, we have mostly women. It's mostly women. We have about 25 members, and it's mostly women. We have 3 girls that can clean and jerk over 100 kilos, which is like 220. Shout out to Carly, Felicia, and Abigail too. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's big.
Oh, dude, I remember at 5 a.m. I would look at Amy, for God's sake. And that woman,
yeah, she's in shape, man.
Oh, dude,
she's in shape.
I don't. Like, it's insane.
And she's what? She has 2 kids?
She has 2 kids. Like, never would you ever guess. And I mean, dude, she is just a grinder.
Yeah.
On all levels whenever it comes to like her fitness. And like, dude, I think that plays into like the mental health and like the excuses that we can get into where everybody's like, well, I've got this and I've got this and I've got this, therefore I can't do this. Like, dude, your mental, like, it does mentally take you to another place whenever you start making hard decisions. And I think like what you're talking about, whenever it, like I think back to myself whenever it came to doing the Olympic weightlifting, like the challenge of knowing I had to go up to the next level and knowing that I could do it. What that does to you from a neurological perspective, the amount of endorphins that you are releasing, like the amount of serotonin you are, dude, like it pushes so many different sensories in your body that are actually producing things that not only physically cause you to look good, mentally, emotionally, it makes you feel good.
Yeah. Shout out to Adam too. He actually did a competition at OKC Barbell too. So he's pretty good himself too. So.
I try. I've leaned towards, because I get bored easily. I still do a lot of the movements. I've moved into rock climbing just because, I don't know, it's a fun exercise.
Sure.
And some other things happened in life to where I couldn't get up at 5 a.m. But I still found another way to get that fitness in, right? Like, dude, complications are always going to happen in life. And like, you've got to figure out if one thing doesn't work for you, don't just throw in the towel, figure out something else. It was like you in football, right? You go through life, football worked for you, you hit a low point, and then you said, you know what? I got to build on this. I got to come back from this. I got to find something that does work for me. And I give you such mad props, dude, because so many people in your shoes, it's easy to surrender. It's easy to give up. It's easy to say, God doesn't have a purpose for me. It's easy to say, dude, I'm not going to have faith anymore. It's easy to become a victim. Like, those things are easy. And so I have a lot of respect for you for going through that and now building a foundation through slow strength training that are affecting your not only your mental, but your physical health as well.
Sure. You know, I think that I was talking to one of my brother actually. You know, when you go to the doctor, they test your blood pressure. They do all these things, right?
Yep.
But they never test your skeletal muscle mass or how strong you are.
Mm.
In my opinion, I think there should be, whenever you go to a doctor for a checkup, I think there should be like a strength test. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whether if it's a grip strength, you know what I mean? Something. It should be something. I think that skeletal muscle mass and them testing your strength should be a thing. But, you know, I don't want to get into it, but, you know, that's doctors just really don't really lean to that side, you know?
No.
And so, like, and I have clients that are elderly, that they're in their 60s. I have a 70-year-old client. Shout out to Vicky, by the way. She's 70 and she can goblet squat a 70-pound dumbbell.
Good God.
You know what I mean? And she's nothing but maybe 5'2", maybe a $110.
But she's still moving her body.
Exactly.
She didn't give up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and this is a lady that's had a stroke too, by the way. She's had a stroke before.
That's inspirational.
Exactly.
Dude, that's cool that you get to like see these stories of like transformation. Like Kelsey and I talked on that podcast a lot about whenever it came to like, you know, and she had a very good point, which I actually didn't really fully conceptualize until you say it. It's not that doctors don't want to do these things. It's with the effects of big pharma, and the effects whenever it comes to insurance. It's hard for doctors to actually apply other methods because they don't have the financial backing to really do things like what you're
So
talking
I agree.
about.
Yeah, they don't have that, and I think they don't go through the process of knowing like exercise, especially when it comes to resistance training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that doctors can get too clinical at times. You know what I mean? And I think whenever somebody's talking about strength training, it's something that you have to go through. You know what I mean? You can't just not go through it and then try to talk about it. You know what I mean? Because you have to know what it does to you for you to relay the message to somebody else.
Right.
So,
well, dude, thank you for coming on the podcast.
most definitely, man.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, it was a great episode. It was great. I mean, we went a couple minutes over, but it's all good, dude. It's good. It's like right at an hour.
Yeah.
So in closing, I always ask 2 questions to everybody. So first question is always, what is your favorite book that you've ever read, and why is it your favorite book? Or a book that you've read that you would highly recommend to others.
This would probably be cliche, and I don't know if you ever heard this book, The 4 Agreements.
I've heard of it.
I think that book is very, 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 very eye-opening. And another book, man, I put them 1A, 1B, The Way of a Superior Man. It's another good book.
Why? On the first book and then the second. 4 Agreements. Why the 4 Agreements?
That gives so many aspects on why you should. There's a lot of agreement. There's a lot of stuff in that book that's very eye-opening. That's very unpopular. That gives very unpopular opinion. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about in that book. So that book really is very controversial. You know what I mean? As well as the superior way, the way of a superior man. That book's very, very, very controversial as well, which it tells a lot about a hard truth. And I think that the society that we live in now doesn't really like talking about hard truth. You know what I mean? And I think we shy away from that, which causes a lot of victimhood too. So, you know, whenever you grow up with the African dad, there's no victimhood in that family. So those 2 books, to me, in my opinion, are something that people should really look into for sure, especially for something that's very self-improving on. So
Okay. And then second question, who is the one person in your life, it can be someone you know personally or from a distance, that made the largest impact on your life, and tell the people why?
that's easy. My dad.
All right.
That's not no question. My dad. Why? To take a man that came from a poor country and then do what he had to do, come to America, build a foundation here first, then got all his brothers and sisters to come here, then his wife, to lay a foundation, go through hard times. My dad's been robbed before. So quick story, my dad actually my dad worked he was a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So he worked in this place in Houston before moving to Dallas. When he moved to Dallas, he got laid off. So he was doing he started to drive cab. And he actually got robbed at gunpoint at one point. And he ended up getting away, but going through stuff that I seen my dad go through, I don't think that's something that's priceless. You know what I mean? Like when you see your dad go through it and he never shed a tear, that's cold, man. You know, my dad's been through it.
Right.
And so like whenever I see my dad go through stuff, I'm like, damn. He really like my dad is smaller than me.
Right.
But I still have that fear. Like he still, like I have fear for him. Like I still fear him. You know what I mean? So like the most inspirational person in my life, easy, that's not even a question, no brainer, is my dad. Like I've seen him go through everything, like every hardship, and it was just, he was even killed. Cold, man. That's I can't even thank him enough, you know? Like I can't. That's why when he wanted to move to Ghana, I was like, man, I know he'll be happy there.
Yeah.
So as long as he's happy, then I'm happy too. And I think that I've made him happy because he always calls me and tells me how I made him happy. So yeah. So shout out to my dad again.
You did your job as a son.
I think so.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, in closing, like, I just think it's so cool to hear these stories, like where people come from, why they do their why. You know, hear the fact that, like, regardless of where you're at today, regardless of what you've gone through in life, regardless of the up, regardless of the down, regardless from your past, regardless of the hardship, like, if you just start taking steps, whether it be one step in another to get to your first job, whether it be one step away from the bottle, whether it be one step towards forgiving someone that you don't think you can forgive, whether it be one brick in your backpack that you've held on to for a long time when it comes to an identity that someone put on you that you literally ingested and you never lived up to. Like, you can always make a change in your life, but it takes time. Strength takes time. Development takes time. Unpacking these things in our past takes time. But you have to start somewhere, and there's no better time than right now to really embrace the fact that you have purpose, that you can overcome, that you have the strength to get through this life. There are people that are out there that will speak hope to you if you reach out to them, and if you step out beyond yourself and truly believe that you have purpose. Because I can promise you without a reasonable doubt, if you talk to either one of us, I don't care who you are, we would both tell you that you have purpose.
For sure. I totally agree with that. Totally. Nobody goes through, you're not just born on accident. You're not just born on accident. So I agree.
Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
I'm so glad. We tried doing this so many times.
Yeah. It's been my fault. Adam's been trying to get me on for a long time. So that's my apologies, man. But we finally made it work. So I appreciate you, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Dude, of course. Well, thank you. Until next time on Backpack Theory Podcast, I'm Adam. This is Jason. See you next time.